Hey guys, welcome back to another video. And with no further ado, let's get into it. Starting off with Thursday night, this past Thursday night's game, Dolphins at the Bills. And this was actually a pretty good game. I mean, it was back and forth. It felt like Miami finally looked like a good team. And Mike McDaniel really coached like he was going to get fired. He like, I have to coach this well. But Tua, once again, another fourth quarter interception to hurt the Dolphins. And I mean, at least one thing you can take away from this game is that Tua should not be Miami starter going forward. Going forward, I know still has that huge contract, but Miami has to do something to get off that money because they're gonna clean house and rebuild this team. They cannot have Tua starting next year. For the Bills, it is concerning that Miami's offense that couldn't really do anything the first couple of weeks was running up and down the field, scoring points all over them. But it's just some huge breaks late in that game. They were to win it. But it is concerning that Buffalo once again is giving up a lot of points. I know it was a short week, but still I feel like Buffalo's defense needs to play better if they want to make it to the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, Miami 0-3. Do have the Jets next week on Monday night, battle of the winless. But if they lose that game, I feel like you just have to clean house, move on from this regime, and start fresh. Moving on to the Sunday game, starting off Bengals at the Vikings, a battle of the backup quarterbacks, and Minnesota looked amazing. I mean, I don't want to say JJ McCarthy was the issue, but Carson Wentz played efficiently. I think maybe this points to a sign that maybe Minnesota will just let McCarthy rest until after their bye week, which I think is week 5. So maybe he comes back week 6, or maybe it's week 6. We'll come back and say something like that. Um, but this Minnesota offense looked amazing. The defense, obviously, we knew that was one of the best defenses in the league. And Isaiah Rodgers, shout out 2 touchdowns. He had 2 forced fumbles. Um, maybe became the first player ever to do that. And a huge win for the Vikings to really get back on track and show that, last week's loss to Atlanta maybe was more so McCarthy's injury and the Vikings offense just not really being the greatest with an injured quarterback. And hey, Carson Wentz, he looked good under KOC, and I think this, yeah, I think Minnesota should moving forward go with Wentz at least until the bye week, and then assess then. For Cincinnati, I mean, rough game, and maybe Joe Burrow was the reason this team was playing so well. Jake Browning, a horrible game. 1 touchdown, 2 picks, but that touchdown was when the game was basically over. So he had 2 interceptions throughout the entire game. The offense could not do a thing against really good Minnesota defense. And it's just how much can Jake Browning do to keep this Cincinnati team that's had the best start since 2018? Has the best start since 2018. Can he keep this team in the playoff hunt, or are they just going to implode and by December when Burrow might be coming back out of the playoff? But we'll see. But a horrible loss for Cincinnati. Minnesota impressive, and I think they should stick with Wentz at least until the bye week, and then maybe assess McCarthy's health and if he'll be back to form. Went on to the Steelers at the Patriots. Pittsburgh, I mean, the defense finally woke up, although the defense more so got took like 2 of the turnovers were late in the red zone, so it's like New England's offense was moving the ball as their Pittsburgh was forcing turnovers. So if it wasn't for those couple of turnovers, New England more than likely wins this game. But it's good to see Pittsburgh's defense finally um step up and play well. This offense, I mean, it is not sustainable to play well. Like week one, I think was more of a mirage. Like I think it was more so just week one, not really knowing what to expect because the last 2 weeks the offense has looked not really the greatest. They escaped this win thanks to New England really kicking themselves in the foot and turning the ball over in the red zone and in Pittsburgh's territory. Um, so Pittsburgh is not like that week one offense was a mirage. Like this last 2 weeks is more so what Pittsburgh offense is going to be. They can't run the ball. They're reliant now on Rodgers just throwing it up, and I mean, if the defense continues to play the way it is and isn't getting turnovers, we could see Pittsburgh lose more games. I mean, they had that Dublin game coming up this week against the Vikings. That'll be an interesting game because Rodgers wanted to be a Viking, but Minnesota they don't want to go from New England. I mean, this was a huge. This is I feel like kind of just like the Raiders game. Like they were in it until the very end, but it's just they kept on making mistakes that hurt them. Like the interception was, you know, just the safety jumping in front, but the two fumbles, one by Stevenson, one by Gibson, hurt this team and gave Pittsburgh momentum with the lead. I think this defense looked tremendous. Even without Christian Gonzalez, it's looked really good. But they need to stop kicking themselves in the foot. Like they need to start playing better offensively, where it's like they can win these sort of games and not turn it off so much. Moving on to the Colts and the Titans and talk about the shock so far of the season. Indianapolis has been amazing. This was against the Titans defense that had looked really good the first 2 weeks, and Indiana just straight up destroyed them. Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor had phenomenal games. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pearson. And this offense is clicking. And maybe Jones just needed to move on, get out of New York and be on a team where it's like he's not asked to do that much. Like in New York, where the offensive line wasn't the greatest, where his receivers and tight ends weren't good, and it was just Saquon and him. He was asked to do a lot more, but in this offense, the offensive line is great. He has great playmakers. It's a running back, receiver, tight end position, and he just needs to, get the ball to those guys. Make plays. The defense has looked phenomenal, and with the way Houston's been playing, I mean, Indy might be the front runners to win the South. They've looked amazing through 3 weeks. They do have the Rams this upcoming week in LA, but Daniel Jones and this Colts team has looked phenomenal. And if DJ keeps this up, he could be the next guy to emerge as a true franchise QB for just another team. Maybe off Tennessee. Kent Ward looked fine. Wasn't his best outing, but it looked, still pretty solid. But I don't know how much longer the Titans are going to keep around Brian Kelly, Ellis Cooper. I mean, they consistently are just hurting Cam Ward. And Ward looked phenomenal. Like this isn't like, and this is more like this year. Like Cam Ward is kind of like Caleb Williams, where it's like they both just don't really have good head coaches their rookie year, and while they're playing pretty good football, it's not leading to wins because coaching staff is hurting them. The defense, they play the worst game of the year, but I think this Colts offense is for real. So I think they just play a really good offense. Um, But yeah, how much longer is Brian Callahan and his coaching staff going to be here? And Cam Ward needs to be given a coach that's going to help him win games. And Brian Callahan just isn't that type of coach. And I mean, we all know Tennessee was wrong for firing like Vrabel, but oh boy, does it look this bad. We're on to it. Another AFC South matchup: Houston and Jacksonville, and this is just called a win is a win. I mean, Jacksonville's offense has not looked the greatest. I mean, Trevor Lawrence continues to have the mistakes he had coming out as a rookie, which kind of like Tua. It's like you're now like Tua's in year six, Trevor's in year five, and these guys are both still making the bad decisions that coming out. Everybody thought if they just got into an NFL team, they would be able to help them, but it hasn't looked. But Jacksonville 2-1. Hey, you get the win. Um, Brian Thomas did have a better moment late in that game to help them get the win. Jacksonville defense looks much improved. Now it was a bad Houston defense, but it has looked much improved. And if they get this offense figured out under Liam Cohen, I think it could be maybe a just better unit, But the win is a win for Jacksonville. You're 2-1, and here for Houston, this is code red. I mean, a lot of people are backing CJ Stroud saying it's his fault, but it's like, what is he supposed to do? Houston didn't prioritize the offensive line, even though we all knew trading away Laramie Tunsil on what was already a bad offensive line was going to hurt this team even more. Stroud still played decent. It's just when you're getting pressured a lot, having to run around and escape pressure, it's kind of hard to play your best. His running game without Joe Mixon has done nothing to help him. And Stroud and Nico Collins are the only Houston offense, like people are bashing Stroud, but it's like what is he going to do? Like his offensive line is the worst in football, and he's having no help from the running game. He's basically trying to lay like he's basically trying to be the entire offense. Well, him and Nico Collins are basically the entire offense of Houston. This defense obviously is great, but Houston just had a shot to win this game, and it's just I mean, I don't know if the offensive coordinator is this bad but the offensive line needs to be prioritized in this upcoming off season because if Stroud has no protection, he's gonna get killed out there. Houston's gonna have nobody to blame but themselves. Moving on to an NFC South matchup when Carolina talked about a dominating win without one of their best guards in Robert Hunt, who I think is going to miss the entire year. Carolina looked phenomenal. I mean, Bryce Young looked, I wouldn't say the best he has, but he looked pretty good. The offense was not clicking on all cylinders, but they played well in the defense with timely turnovers. And I mean, this is a huge win for a Panthers team. I think this was the first time they'd scored 20 or 30 points since 2015 or 2016. One of the two. It's just crazy. Oh, that's been a decade since Carolina last scored 30 points. And for Bryce Young, this is a huge momentum booster. Like, I remember last week talking about how well he played in the later in the second half against the Cardinals, and everybody was kind of scoffing off and saying, "Oh, that's just because Arizona is a close game." Well, Carolina looked amazing this week. Played their best game in a while, and I mean, if this Panthers team looks like this on a consistent basis, with the offense looking better and the defense playing like this, I mean, Carolina could be a sneaky wild card team. Not to say it will be, but this looked amazing for Atlanta. I mean, this was a game where they could have been 2-1 and second place in that division, right behind Tampa Bay, and they just got destroyed. Michael Penix had the greatest game. I mean, this offense couldn't do anything. Their defense, did play well against Carolina's offense, but did give up some timely plays throughout the game, and it's just, Atlanta had a shot to be 2-1 and firmly still in the race. And it's not over yet, but Carolina embarrassed them. And it's just, you know, a reason to be excited for the Panthers for the first time in maybe forever. Moving on to Battle of the Undefeateds. Philly stays unbeaten, coming back against the Rams. And Philly, I mean, I'm still not impressed by this team. You know, they looked horrible, at least for the entire first half and the beginning of the second half. And then because the Rams just forgot how to play football, from the rest of the third quarter and the entire fourth quarter, Philly was able to come back. There was some timely non-penalties. There were some timely penalties, and there were some timely penalties that were and weren't called that helped Philly get this win. That early touchdown that LA got, and that was called back. They just set up for a field goal. And then, the tush push early touchdown and A.J. Brown's touchdown. You know, Philly was able to throw the ball and did look pretty good, but I'm just not convinced. But this Philly team seems like just a better defensive team, but it feels like the 2023 team just better defensively, where it's like they're getting these close wins where it's like the other team just makes a mistake and they're able to capitalize. I feel like once they play the Bucks this upcoming week. I feel like once they play, a team that doesn't make a mistake, we're gonna get exposed. For LA, they had this game like they were dominating and they blew it. But if you're the Rams, I mean, you showed that you can beat this team. You just didn't need to play it, full full quarters. I think they do need corner help. It showed in a big way when they could not stop A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and this passing attack when Philly got it going. But if you're the Rams, you know you can beat this team. And when it comes, in January, LA's going to be able to, I think, beat this team. But on to the Jets at the Bucks. I mean, this was an interesting game. Tampa was dominating through three quarters. Like, I think they were up 23-6. And it looked like, Tampa was gonna roll with this win. Like it seemed like it wasn't even gonna be a contest. And then the Jets came back. I mean the huge block field goal return for a touchdown by Will McDonald to take the lead was huge, and Baker once again driving down, getting a game-winning drive that helped Tampa stay undefeated for the first time. I think they said since '05, which is crazy. I think it's been 20 years since the Bucks started 3-0, but huge win, and they got the Eagles next week in the Battle of the Undefeated at home, so we'll see. Tampa's kind of been Phil's kryptonite the past couple of years, so we'll see if Baker and the Bucks can, get another huge win over the Eagles for the Jets. Despite no Justin Fields, this offense played well in that fourth quarter. Two huge timeout touchdowns of this team, but I mean the offense couldn't do anything, and then Tampa kind of taking their foot off the brake. and a timely blocked field goal helped them, almost win this game. They're 0-3. As I said earlier, to take on the Dolphins in the winless Monday night game next week. So we'll see if they can notch the first win. I don't know if Justin Fields is going to be out, in or out, but and for Tampa Bay, Mike Evans left the game early. Another huge injury for this Bucs team, so I'll monitor, that. But a huge win for Tampa Bay, despite having the game in control and then almost blowing it. So they gotta get that figured out. But a huge win. Moving on to Raiders, the Commanders, and Washington. Yeah, this is kind of honestly what expected because remember last year when Janet Daniels got early injured against that in the Panthers game, and of course ruled out the rest of the game where Mario came in and played really well. So you kind of expected him to play pretty good. Oh, Washington's defense, it says 24, but those were kind of garbage time touchdowns when the game was mostly over. And 2-1, without your quarterback, you're just glad to be 2-1. And Washington still looks really good. Still looks like a playoff contender year for years to come. And it just shows the depth that this team has. But like even when they're jaded, even with Austin Eckler out and not having that many running backs, the team can still play really well and have a huge win for Vegas. I mean, this was a huge game where it's like they could have won this game and flipped their season around. Still not getting Ashton Jenkins the ball enough. I don't know. Like I know they want to save him for later in the year, but it's like drafted him so he could be one of the vocal points of his offense, and they're not doing that. Gino played well. Trey Tucker had a huge breakout game. This offensive line is one of the worst, which is one of the reasons Vegas lost this game despite Washington having not really a good pass rush, but Vegas had a shot to get a huge roll to win and could have been 2-1, said 1-2, and you know, not playing the easiest schedule coming up. So we'll see how it will unfold. On to Packers at the Browns and Cleveland. I mean, a huge win. This defense is for real. They dominated a Packers team that seemingly looked like a Super Bowl contender. And they made them look like they were one of the worst teams in the league somehow. Um, huge block, um, huge pick, a huge block field goal. That would have been the game winner. Green Bay hit it. And shout out to Browns kicker Austin Schmitz or Andre Schmitz. Got left flack in week one for missing a PAT and a field goal that would have won Cleveland the game against the Bengals, but gets this win. You know, Kevin Stefanski no longer on the hot seat probably, but this is just a huge win. Cleveland has the best defense in the league. I think they showed that they shut down Green Bay's offense. For Green Bay, this was a win that they should have had. I mean, you're going up against a bad Browns offense. I get Cleveland at home, but it's like they played on Thursday. They had so much more rest than Cleveland, and yet somehow came out looking flat. Jordan Love just did not look as good as he did in the first 2 weeks, and this Green Bay defense played phenomenal until late in the game when Cleveland was able to go down the field and get those points to win this game. So if you're Green Bay, you're concerned with the fact that you were up 10. Your defense was dominated, but the offense against a great defense could not do anything. And it's just Green Bay needed, should have had this win to be 3-0. They're 2-1, and with Minnesota and Detroit both winning, and even Chicago, it makes that race for the North even so much closer. So we'll just still wait and see how this season will go. Moving on to the 4 o'clock game, Broncos at the Chargers. I mean, huge win late for LA. I mean, Denver was storming back. It looked like the Broncos were going to win, but Herbert and his team just stayed course. They played well, and I guess Herbert, maybe this is going to be his MVP year with the way he's looked phenomenal in these first 3 games, and maybe he finally proves to everybody that he is one of those top elite quarterbacks, which I do think he is. The Chargers defense played pretty well, getting some huge stops late in the game to help LA come back and get this win. And, Chargers 3-0. They got a bad Giants team coming up. So they could be 4-0. With the Chiefs struggling, this could be a shot for LA to really propel themselves to the AFC West crown. For Denver, and this was a game where it's like they weren't from control in that third quarter. They had a shot where it's like if they were up 20-13 in the fourth quarter with a shot to control that game, but they just couldn't. Bo Nix hasn't looked the best so far. I know he bounced back against Indy, but he just hasn't really looked the greatest so far. Maybe the sophomore slump is coming for him, but and Sean Payton making some questionable decisions late in that game. I mean, Denver could have had firm control and could have been first place in this division instead, tied with Denver, tied with Vegas and KC for second place, and LA. Now 2 games on everybody being 3-0. Moving on to the Saints at the Seahawks. This was just a dominating win. I mean, when you have a block punt that gives Seattle instant red zone opportunity, and then when you have a punt return touchdown in the first quarter, kind of hard for a team to come back from that, and New Orleans never really did. Seattle dominated. We have the Cardinals this week on a short week. That should be a good game. And hey, Sam Darnold has looked phenomenal. The Seattle team, you know, I've lost in week 1, but have looked really impressive these past 2 weeks, especially against 2 defenses. Pittsburgh defense is supposed to be better, and the Lions defense that had looked really good through the first couple of weeks, and they looked amazing. For New Orleans, I mean, I feel like this game kind of sums up that they are the worst team in the league. Spencer Rattler didn't have the greatest game. You know, hard circumstances being down 21-0, but I mean, 0-3. They had that game in a couple of weeks against the Giants. That might be the only time they have a shot to get a win. Um, but Seattle looked amazing, and they could be 3-1, especially with the way Arizona's been playing. You know, and 3-1 through 4 games. With the Rams losing, with San Fran being banged up, another injury to Nick Bosa. Seattle could have a shot if they are able to pull off some huge wins, and they could possibly win this West. But how wide open it is right now. Moving on to the Cowboys at the Bears, and I mean, the two are early to fire Natty. I mean, I know it wasn't a good head coach, but I mean, at least he was supposed to be a good coordinator. But the last 2 weeks have looked horrible. I mean, Caleb looked like he was back at USC, dicing out Dallas's defense like they were a college defense, and he looked phenomenal. This offense looked phenomenal. That's a running game. Um, and they have just looked horrible. But I mean, Dallas. I mean, I know Deron Bland is out, but still, this defense is supposed to be good. And hey, maybe this was, Micah Parsons. Maybe this is another reason why you don't trade him because he helps out the entire defense and makes it look like a much better unit. Chicago. I mean, huge win, 1-2. You get everybody off your backs after that huge blowout loss to Detroit. You get a huge win here to at least show that they can be a competitive team this year. And it was a huge bounce back game. And this defense looked really good against the Dallas offense that had been putting up points in the first couple of weeks for Dallas. CD, Tyler Booker, both going to be out long term for a good bit. Hurts this offense, and we'll see how they can respond. But this defense, horrible. They got Michael Parsons Sunday night coming to Cameron World against a Packers team that blew an opportunity to be 3-0. And I mean, 1-3 start is not Green Bay. 1-3 start with how bad Dallas's defense has looked is not far fetched. And it's just how many losses are they going to stack up with how bad this defense has looked? What to see, but a huge win for Chicago and Dallas. I mean, maybe they need to rethink who that defensive coordinator is going to be for the long term. They're moving on to the final 4 o'clock game. Cardinals at the Niners. A defensive game. You know, Mac Jones once again looked pretty good for the most part. I know people are going to be like, oh, if Brock Purdy was in the game, maybe it would have been amazing. But it's like, even if Brock Purdy was in the game, it still would have looked like this. Like, Mac Jones, looked pretty good. Thank God they have Eddie Pinheiro to make these kicks because, if they had him in week 1, and they might have, saved themselves from, having to almost lose to Seattle. This defense under Robert Saleh, it's looking like turning back the clock to like when Saleh and D'Amico Ryans were the coaches there. It is sad to see Nick Bosa go down, but they're 3-0. I do think it's a fraudulent 3-0. The 3 teams they've played, they kind of let down against Seattle, and then they beat New Orleans and Arizona, who aren't really, the greatest teams, especially the Cardinals. Haven't really looked the greatest, um, especially offensively in the fourth quarter. So I think it's a fraudulent 3-0, but hey, 3-0 is 3-0. For Arizona, I mean, once again, they had a shot to win a game. The first 2 weeks, they kind of lucked out because their defense saved them. But this week, their defense didn't, injuries in their secondary have really piled up. And have really hurt this team. But even then, it's like Arizona had a shot to win this game. They, for some reason, you didn't try to run the ball. And it's just like, they didn't try to run the ball on the third down, forcing Fran to use that final timeout. They threw it, it was incomplete. It's just, what is Arizona doing? Could have a bounce back game this Thursday against Seattle at home. But it's just, they could have been 3-0, first place in this division, and choked it away. On to Sunday Night Football. Chiefs at the Giants. Casey, no longer winless. They looked like they have, not great running the ball, decent passing the ball, and the defense. I think week 1 was more of a mirage because I think the Chargers offense is really good. Last 2 weeks, it's looked pretty good. And hey, 1-2. They got a game this week against the Ravens. The loser is going to be 1-3. Isn't that crazy? Two teams that we all said were going to be playing for the Super Bowl along with the Bills. One of them could be 1-3 to start the year. So it's a hard way to see it, but hey, a win is a win. This defense looked amazing. Is the Giants' offense, but to get that win, to get that monkey off their back, and at least be able to move forward. But we'll see them. They play the Ravens, Jag, and Lions before the bye, so we'll see how they are against tougher competition. For the Giants, I mean, how much sooner are we going to see Jackson Dart? I mean, Russ looked amazing last week, but it seems like that was more like the Dallas bad defense. Um, meanwhile, um, meanwhile, I mean, their defense played, decently well, especially early on when Kansas City was only getting field goals. It felt like the Giants had a shot to win this game, and their offense just couldn't do a thing. You know, I know, and I don't want to push Dart out there and like force him into a start that he shouldn't be, but it's like this Giants offense looks horrible with Russell Wilson out there. And it's like, how much longer does Brian Daboll want to keep Russ out there knowing he's coaching for his job this year? So how early do we see Dart? Do we see him this week? Do we see him next week against the Saints? I know they have a pretty brutal stretch with like the Eagles and like two and they have like the Eagles and Niners and three of the four next games after that Saints game. We'll see, but it just it doesn't look good in New York and how much longer the Giants going to keep Russ out there knowing they need to win games and at least see what Jackson Dart is for whoever the next coach is going to be most likely. And then we're on to the Monday night game, Lions at the Ravens. This was a thriller, and hey, give Detroit credit. They were able to run the ball. Now, Baltimore did not have just met or not the amount of BK and Kyle Van Noy, two guys on that D line that really help out that pass rush and run game. So Detroit was able to play really well against an injured Ravens defense, but they played really well. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs looked really good. Jared Goff in his passing game didn't even have to do that much. It was all the running game. The defense came up with timely sacks and turnovers, and Detroit 2-1. After that loss to Green Bay, I think a lot of people started thinking, well, maybe Detroit isn't as good, but I think it was more like Green Bay's defense is that good, and it was week one, Russ. The last 2 weeks, they looked really good, and they should be a formidable unit for years, throughout the year. They should compete for that North, no doubt. For the Ravens, it's a hard game when it's like they could not stop the run, and the Ravens had no stopping the run, so it's like they could not stop the run. They're 1-2 when they could have been 2-1 in first place with Cincinnati losing. Um, so hard loss there. Um, you do have the Chiefs, Texans, and Rams before a bye week. Um, so we'll see what this team is made of these next couple of weeks against really good defenses. Um, but Baltimore, I mean, this offense, I mean, Derrick Henry, another fumble, which hurt this team late in that game. And the Ravens are just missing Patrick Ricard and Isaiah Likely, offensive line. And if Matt Buike goes on IR and Kyle Van Noy misses another game, this defense is going to be missing two huge pieces. And this might be just another injury plagued year where it's like the Ravens, are going to have to just win shootouts because of how injured this team is going to be. But that will be it for me. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope, hope you guys subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll catch you guys on Thursday for my picks. So see y'all and bye.